This is Jay Michaels, and this is Boston Sci-Fi Film Festival Week on Channel I, the independent film station. Go to Jay Michaels Arts, JayMichaelsArts.com for all the information and all these interviews with these amazing filmmakers from Boston Sci-Fi. And to get tickets for Boston Sci-Fi or find out about all the other events and films, you would go to bostonsci-fi.com. How easy is that? Now you're probably thinking to yourself, okay, another film festival? No way. Boston Sci-Fi is the largest genre film festival in America and only the second largest in the world. So one might think, wow, what makes it so good? Here's 3 reasons why it's so good. The filmmakers and the films that they choose are brilliant. And I'm thrilled to speak to three amazing individuals about their amazing films. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome. I'm glad you can be here. Kerry Mosier, did I pronounce it right?
Mosier, yes.
Mosier, there you go. All right, close.
Yeah.
I got fancy with it. Okay.
I wish it was fancy, to be honest, but
well, there you go. There you go. I understand. Tell us about your film. Tell us what you did for the festival.
Yeah, so just to sum it up really quickly, it's about a girl, Kelsey. She's 23 years old, and she becomes very suspicious of a new company that's promising to create your perfect lover. And just to kind of create, the sense of the scene, I really wanted to create something, and my good friend Carlton Pesta directed the film, and he was like, all right, we have 5 minutes, let's think of something. We hung up the phone. I called him back up with this idea. I pitched it to him, and he loved it. And then I think it was like 1 a.m. I wrote the first draft. And after that, we obviously went through 6 or 7 more drafts of it and pulled in some of our friends who was a writer and came up with the perfect match. And it's the first project that I've ever really starred in and created. And I'm so grateful and lucky to have the cast and crew that we were able to recruit onto the project. Lots of Boston locals. Like I mentioned, I'm from New Jersey, so I went to school in Boston, so I met tons of people in the area that were so great. And we actually shot the whole thing in an entire weekend. I think the second day was a 16-hour day. So everyone was just so great and lovely, and I'm really, really excited about it. I want to keep doing more with the story, but Carl's kind of like, let's just slow down and focus on it one step at a time. But yeah, I'm really excited and really passionate about it. So I'm excited for everyone to see it.
It's called A Perfect Match?
Perfect Match, yes.
Perfect Match. Now, any kind of genre film, sci-fi, horror, fantasy, anything like that, the moment someone says, the character is suspicious about this, you say, okay, and there's the plot right there. Don't give anything away because I have a feeling it's a really cool twist. But you have this amazing parable because we've entered this world where no one dates. We've entered this world where okay, we have to be cyber now, but it's like, why don't we just meet people anymore? Why do we have to go through a computer? What prompted you to create, and you're starring in it too, oh my goodness. What was the inspiration? What made you say, I got to do about that?
I think I've just heard so many, whether it's horror stories or love stories, that people meet their significant other online through whether it's a dating app or a website. And I know people kind of struggle, especially people who are hopeless romantics, they struggle to, or they dream about meeting someone walking down the street and bumping into them on the sidewalk and just falling in love and stuff like that. I think there's 2 different types of people out there. And I think some people struggle to meet others in the real world. So they kind of go to dating apps where it kind of takes out a little bit of anxiety because you have a screen to separate you. So I think there's 2 different types of people out there. And I think that, like I said, this was an idea that came up within like 5-10 minutes. And, there's some characters in the film that are like that hopeless romantic type of person where they want to meet someone face to face and kind of fall in love in the old school kind of way. But then there's people that are all for this idea. And it's like, why do I have to go through the stress of meeting someone who could be creepy and not work out and waste my time when I can just create my perfect match? So like you mentioned, not giving too much away, but there's definitely 2 sides to the story. And there is a little bit of a twist.
And like I say, you hand us words, create my perfect match. Okay, you've gotten my attention.
Yes.
Can't wait to see this film. Very fascinating on that. It's interesting you talk about hopeless romantic. I love reality TV, and there was a reality TV show that long story short, it deals in people who get married at first sight, and
Yes.
the camera rolls through their first 6 months or something like that, and so many of them say, "Oh, I just want the white picket fence," and so many times I think to myself when I look at them, because they're very young, and I say, do they even know what that reference really means?
Yeah. Yeah.
And
I mean, sorry to cut you off. I was going to say that I even think sometimes, like, I say that and I'm like, well, what does that mean? I think people don't even really know what they want, so it's complicated.
So you're hitting a very cautionary tale right there. Oh, very cool. But I'm sure people are going to walk out of there going, all right, I think I'm just going to go to a bar and try to meet someone.
Yeah, exactly.
Good. Nick, tell me about your film.
Yeah, my film is Wet Willie. It's a story about a young boy who kind of still finding himself, who has no friends, who a little bit of an outsider, and all he really wants is that one true friend. And he's getting bullied at school, and that one friend happens to be some sort of demonic, maybe imaginary type thing. So, really it's a story of friendship, but kind of wrapped in this whole horror genre world that we like to play in. And, it's funny. The beginning of this is really a classic LA story of a buddy of mine, casual friends. Let's get coffee sometime. Let's get lunch sometime, blah, blah, blah. And we eventually did it. And we were kind of just talking kind of about childhood and some other things. And, even like mental health. And we kind of like really opened up to each other. And he was like, yeah, I have this idea for this short. It's called Wet Willie and it's all I have. And I went, that's all I need. I was like, I'm in. Let's figure that out. I love the title so much for a horror. I was like, and then we just figured it out. But it was literally, that was it. He just had this idea and we kind of ran with it.
It's so funny that yours is a horror film, because Wet Willie's disgusting. I know what a Wet Willie is, and it's disgusting. So already I'm going, so you've already scared me with the title. Really interesting, because we're getting two sort of relationship things here. So you're kind of talking about, meeting a friend. Everybody just wants to have a friend, and how difficult that has become. We think lives are so much easier because of all this wonderful cyber we have around us, but it's really not. It's friendship so tough.
Yeah, and I think for me, this was my first ever horror ever. So the way I wanted to look at it was, if you stripped away the horror, stripped away the genre, stripped away all that, what's the story about? And it is a story about like that feeling that everyone can connect to, of sometimes just kind of wanting a friend, or kind of hoping somebody else in the world understood who you were, and for the true who you were, right? And then the rest of the stuff is just the fun.
Now, this is your first horror, and it's interesting you say about stripping it away. I've always been of the mind that every horror, every science fiction, every fantasy is a parable. Had we just watched Contagion maybe a little harder back in 2011, but so it's really interesting that you're saying it's this story of friendship, this story of yearning simply for connection, something we're losing, ironically, as the days go on. Now, this is your first horror. Are you a horror film lover, an aficionado?
It's one of those things that, I spent a lot of time doing comedy, which obviously seems to be the cousin of horror in some ways. But, I never thought about it, never thought of myself as a horror person. And then as I did this and dove into this project, I was like, oh, one of my first movies ever was Monster Squad. And, oh, my grandma and I would watch Tales from the Crypt all the time together. And I would, as I kind of thought about it, horror was so part of my life and so part of my like kind of film. Hitchcock was something that when I first was like, I'm going to be a director, those are the movies I dove into, right? I'm from San Francisco, so that's always been a beautiful setting for him. So I loved it even more. And I was like, oh, right. Yeah, it's always been there. And I felt more like I understood the language more than I thought, probably.
I was going to say most definitely the way you're describing it, I was like, well, of course you're going to do a horror movie, whether you become a horror film director or whatever, within the genre, that's up to you. But of course you're going to do a horror film. Mm-hmm. Hitchcock and all, and I'm sorry, that's the bumper sticker. My grandma and I watched Tales from the Crypt. Wow.
Yeah.
This is really great. So you're both tapping into something very powerful, very heartfelt, the notion of friendship, the notion of love, it starts in here. So it's really interesting that we get the cautionary tales on both. Bryan, you're having far too good a time listening to these things. Lay it on me. Tell me about your film. He's sitting here going, yeah.
Absolutely.
Oh, wow, that's great. Oh, yeah. Tell me about yours.
No, these both sound like really exciting projects. My film is called Older Posts. It's about an aging social media influencer who wishes she could be young again. And when her wish is granted, her posts transform into something she never could have imagined. And it might be something that's one of her worst nightmares. So this story was inspired greatly by The Picture of Dorian Gray, Oscar Wilde's famous novel. And in the story, just to recount quickly, Dorian is a very, very good-looking young man who wants to preserve his youth forever. So he makes a deal that he can stay young forever while his portrait, his painting of himself, grows old. I wanted to update that story for the 21st century. I think we don't look at portraits of ourselves anymore. We look at Instagram posts. So I thought, what if somebody wanted the same thing? They wanted to stay young forever, but then the rotting of their soul is shown on their Instagram post. It's kind of dealing with the idea of the double, what is it, what image do you want to put forth in real life and what image do you want to put forth on social media? And if you had to pick one, which one is the most important to you? So I think our character has a really hard time deciding that. And she makes a choice and thinks it might be the wrong one by the end.
Exquisite. Wow. One of my favorite stories is the Picture of Dorian Gray. And ironically, as we were just talking about an expression like white picket fence, how many times have we seen in a movie, how many times have someone said, oh, well, yes, I have a picture up in my attic that's aging, and nobody understands that reference. So, I'm so glad you tapped into that. And I didn't do this on purpose, putting the three of you together. Yours is also, again, we have the sense of love, the sense of friendship, and the sense of self. And you've also very visionarily, we talk about influencers, and we all imagine that they're 21 years old and they're all sitting in front of a pool and they're wearing sneakers and whatever else. But you tapped into the notion that the internet is old enough that yes, there are influencers that are aging out on there, and you're picking them. Wow. What gave you the inspiration for that?
Yeah, so there is, of course, The Picture of Dorian Gray. The novel was hugely inspirational, but I also wanted to think about, what does social media fame look like? And does that resemble fame that we've seen in other forms? We don't really understand this form of fame yet. Is it going to be like a Sunset Boulevard situation, where as people age out of this, they are longing for something that they once had? What does it look like when somebody who's a star right now in this social media environment becomes somebody who the audience no longer wants to see? How will that feel for that person who used to have all of this attention, all of this recognition for something that they held very close to their heart? And then, just like any form of entertainment, it can be gone in a moment's notice. And so I really wanted to kind of tap into that idea and think about, what is that sense of longing for something that once was, but something that's in the near future.
Again, we have this same walking hand in hand with our other two filmmakers here. It's really a fascinating concept, because yes, of course, our avatars are everything these days. So you're hitting us with that, and the whole notion of social media, how we're finally analyzing it. Wow, really intense. Are you a social media person? Are you a big social media person? Yeah. We all are, but are you a big social media?
I mean, and a lot of members of the family are as well. But yeah, myself, I'm actually a really avid Lego builder. And so I have my own Lego Instagram that I'm trying to get off the ground as a sort of influencer in my own right. So yeah, I was kind of relating my experience in that, of just obsessively staring at the phone, waiting for likes, that feeling of, wanting the validation and thinking, of course, I don't need that, but then realizing maybe I actually really do. And that kind of self-reflection was kind of painful for me to realize, and also I wanted to put a little bit of that into the character.
That's what I was looking for. I was waiting for you to say something like, and then I just stared at the phone again and realized this can't be good. And suddenly we have this whole story. Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, Nick, when is your film going up?
At the festival or in general?
In the festival.
I don't know, actually, to be honest. I don't know. I have no idea yet.
Okay. Kerry, do you know when yours is going up?
I believe it's up on the last day, like I mentioned before, Carl, he kind of has all the information, so I'm not exactly sure the timing and everything, but I'm pretty sure it's the last day.
Wow. Okay. We have a grand finale. Wow. And Bryan, when is yours?
My film is at 3 p.m. Eastern time on Sunday the 14th on Valentine's Day.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
It's perfect.
Sounds like we all might have some Valentine's Day themed films in some way or another.
I've been talking to many filmmakers, and when they tell me that the Valentine's Day weekend and then they tell me the story, I'm going, wow, okay, that's romantic. Ladies and gentlemen, you go to bostonscifi.com, bostonscifi.com, and you can get schedules for all of these films and so many others. I give you guys, all three of you, a lot of credit. I've always said, like I said, it's a cautionary tale. And for you to dig into yourselves, we hear these cautionary tales about everything from global warming to politics and corruption and everything, and they're all amazing. But you dug into yourselves, you looked at what you consider friendship, what you consider love, what you consider yourself, and created these movies. And I applaud you for the bravery, and I applaud you for the visionary quality and the humility in saying, okay, let me take a look at this. And that's really great. Wish you luck. Can't wait to see what happens. Give them hell.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Much, Jay. I really appreciate
Thanks,
it.
Jay.